I would like to call to order the Colonial Beach Town Council work session, Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Roll call of members. All council members are present. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving forward. Council member liaison and commission reports. All right, we'll start with Mr. Duggins.
Well, finance, I hope there's some copies out there, but I just want to brag on our town manager, Lisa, for the exceptional job they have done putting together a budget that's understandable, that tells people what services they receive, where their money goes, how money is raised. And I just think this is a big asset to the town to have this. I like everybody involved.
Yeah, I want to second that. Thank you very much. And this is on the website yet or not yet?
Will be posted after you all adopt.
Okay, it will be posted after the adoption. All right, Mr. Marquardt?
I was at the Rappahannock Regional Criminal Justice Academy graduation this past Friday on behalf of council, and we're welcoming to the police department Joshua Epperson and Benjamin Jackson. I should point out that they will still be undergoing in-service training during most of the summer, so don't be surprised if you see two police officers hanging out with each other.
Thanks for that, Mrs. Robertson.
Doctor, here, as he walks in the door, how about that? Graduation was what I would consider a huge success. It was very timely and everyone seemed to be really having a good time. And anything else, I'll let him say about it, but they're all finished.
Okay.
Good to go. Thank you.
Miss Dr. Sullivan?
Good afternoon. I have the Ngo Liaison Report, and our NGOs have been quite busy. The Alliance of Colonial Beach Community Organizations has created a page on Nextdoor, so they now have a presence on Nextdoor as well as on Facebook. The privately owned Colonial Beach Putt-Putt Golf Course that used to sit next to Suki's was purchased by a local business and donated to the town's Park and Rec Department. It will be refurbished and relocated to a town property and will be free for use by residents and visitors. Steve Kennedy has stepped down from Green Space. Walter Leroy has assumed the role of president of this organization. The Love Golf Cart has been refurbished and is back on the beach, thanks to Maggie Lane for her leadership on this project, along with BAM, Colonial Beach Community Foundation, and the Artist Guild for their contributed talents. The Anti-Litter Subcommittee is working on a town-wide multi-pronged campaign. The next meeting is scheduled for June the 9th, and work on the website continues. Downtown Colonial Beach would like to express its appreciation to the town council and town government for their base funding over the past few years that has permitted the organization to remain in existence. Having urged council to hire an economic development director at the last meeting, Downtown Colonial Beach now concurs with the town manager on the best way to approach this issue, and she in turn expressed support for one of our proposals for an economic development council or commission. Downtown Colonial Beach is currently awaiting recommendations from the forestry department for the trees and shrubs to begin landscaping along Colonial Avenue. The Virginia Landmarks Commission is expected to meet this month regarding our historic designation of the commercial district. Downtown retailers have been contacted for input on retail to target through the Historic District Virginia Main Street Commercial District's Affiliates Grant. A meeting is scheduled between Downtown Colonial Beach and interested retailers and the University of Mary Washington Small Business Development Center for discussion. For retail marketing, Downtown Colonial Beach is seeking an owner-agent information on all currently available and new rental space in the historic district and Colonial Avenue for promoting to prospective retailers. The Colonial Beach Community Foundation is close to formulating a proposal to the town regarding implementation of town-wide Wi-Fi. They held their first newcomers welcome event in Colonial Beach at the brewery on May 20th. There were 75 to 80 people in attendance, including representatives of the Alliance, newcomers to Colonial Beach, and the event was very successful and will be repeated on the third Thursday of each month. I do believe they're going to move it around. I don't think it's always going to be at the brewery. They have also received a grant of $2,500 from America's Farmers Grow Communities, sponsored by the Bayer Fund and recommended by Monrovia Farms. They are formally supporting Save the Bay Day, come out on June 5th to help clean up our waterways and our streets. They are formally supporting the Parks and Rec Department in raising funds for projects like the Oyster Wars historical marker. And they are working with WWER to disconnect the foundation from the formal ownership of the radio license so that WWER becomes a separate organization. The museum at Colonial Beach is pleased to announce they will be reopening for the season after missing all of last year. Saturday, June 5th, their hours will be Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. The museum also plans to open during the evening on the second Friday of each month in support of Art Walk. The Colonial Beach Artists Guild is pleased to announce the second Friday Art Walks will begin again on Friday, June 11th. All town businesses in the vicinity are invited to stay open on second Friday evenings to enjoy any increase in foot traffic. Art Walk hours will be 6 to 9 in the summer and 6 to 8 in the fall and winter. The Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce, the 2021 calendar of events has been approved and published. Potomac River Fest is moving along with the parade and vendor applications coming in daily. The Fireman's Parade will kick off the weekend Friday night. That's the same night as the Art Walk. And the Grand Feature Parade will start at 12 noon on Saturday. On Saturday and Sunday, the Hill will have a children's area, contest, beer and wine garden, and the band Real Deal playing from 6 to 9 before the fireworks. The NGO sign-in is near completion and hopefully will be installed later this week. That's the sign near the entrance to Public Works they've been working on. The chamber is offered to host a town hall event to solicit business and citizen input on parking. The Economic Development Committee attended the May 12th reception for the Maryland delegates pertaining to the riverboat. And their enhanced sports betting capabilities and strengthening ties between Charles County and tourism. Mr. Mike Fitzpatrick attended the VITA workshop on May 24th pertaining to the stimulus money coming available. A full report was delivered to the mayor and town manager. Significant opportunities exist for Colonial Beach to secure infrastructure and revitalization dollars in the coming months. Mr. Fitzpatrick attended the Go Virginia workshop on May 25th pertaining to funding available and the roadmap for site readiness for business expansion. The report is available from Mr. Fitzpatrick upon request. Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Joe Kelly submitted a report to the Colonial Beach Community Foundation pertaining to the recommendations for commercial and townwide Wi-Fi. Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Eric Nelson will be happy to present their findings and recommendation to council as appropriate. The recommendations were based on multiple interviews with commercial providers and town managers from several municipalities throughout Virginia that have implemented similar programs. The Economic Development Committee has strongly recommended that council approve a full-time economic development director position for the town as soon as possible to focus on obtaining the state and federal funding available. We believe this position will more than pay for itself the first year. And that concludes my report. Thank you for your patience.
You got it. Mr. Allison?
So I'll make mine a little shorter. So I attended the Parks and Rec meeting last night, and some of the stuff that they discussed was that they're going to be working on is the standardized language for all the parks through the town, working with the NGOs for the putt-putt that we had purchased, or that has been purchased and designated to go on town property.
It was donated, right?
I'm sorry.
Not purchased by the town,
Correct,
donated.
purchased by the NGO. And
Purchased by local business.
correct. And then identified a place to put the putt-putt facility within town property. Coming soon will be information about croquet on Sundays at the Eleanor Park. They approved their bylaws, which then will be submitted to town council. They have an activity going on today and tomorrow, calling all athletes to be able to train with professionals. That's from 6 to 7:30 today and tomorrow. And that's all for me.
Okay, couple notes from the planning commission. I met last week, the 27th. First, they formalized the formation of a resilience committee with Mr. Tree Mack as the lead for that. So thank you, Tree, for taking that on. They were looking for additional people to join this, and they're looking across the council and citizens in Colonial Beach to be participants in this resilience committee. Begin to take on the work of that resiliency, adaptability, feasibility tool that, you know, the RAF committee has started. So I know you were in attendance there, Mayor, and so I think there'll be some participation in it. We'd like to see citizens as an opportunity to join in, not just on this committee, but also be able to see how the planning commission works and how the work in the planning commission then feeds into the council itself. Other presentation we had from the planning commission was one of the developers of the Harry Nice Bridge, who gave an update. Right now, the planning on opening that for traffic in the winter of 22-23. So there'll be 4 lanes. They said it'll be fully complete in 24. They didn't give the exact time from there, but we will have traffic on it in the winter of 22-23. Of note, they will allow bicyclists on the bridge, only on 1 lane, and there will be notification to motorists that there's a bicyclist on the bridge at that time. So there's not going to be a separate bike lane. That was good. They did ask for our help, and you may have seen some of the signs up on asking boaters to slow down in that region. They're getting a lot of folks that are creating wakes while you're on one of those barges, especially if you're up on one of those little crow's nests up there, where at the bottom of the barge may be doing this, that individual's swinging quite frantically. So again, if you're in that region, slow down. I think they're asking for 6 knots is the maximum speed. Lastly, discussed from the UVA study, which we got a presentation from last time from Professor Firehawk on a proposal for a park development, a linear park. One of the things they also did, those students, was a review of our ordinances that related to stormwater management and risk mitigation in our community. So they've done a pretty extensive ordinance review. I know Vicki's got a copy of those. I've asked the planning commission to take a look at it in terms of, all right, start prioritizing which ones we want to look at so that next year we're not saying, yep, remember that list we got last year? Yep, they're all the same. So we need to start hitting those things as part of the old holistic ordinance review that the planning commission is looking at. But I've asked them to start looking at that specifically. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I, other than fielding a lot of citizen requests, returned the plaque that is supposed to be mounted on Town Hill on the main center stage. It had been removed or fell off or vandalized. I'm not sure how it happened, but anyway, we couldn't find it for a while. We found it and returned it, and it will go back up once it has been fixed. The fasteners need to be reinstalled in order to fix it. The water bill will have another town council update page with it. So that's input from every single member of council as in that. It also features a small update from the Westmoreland Rehabilitation, because they are now offering more medical services to residents as outpatient services. And so knowing our medical services here in town are so limited, I thought it important to highlight the fact that those services are expanding at that facility. They're looking to bring in more doctors as well. especially specialty services to be able to offer through that facility. So as that starts to expand, hopefully, I know we don't have a urgent care or a hospital or anything like that, but wherever we can attract and help facilitate that, it was important. I did attend the meet and greet for new residents. It was very well attended in our community, and thank you for all the people that were there. A lot of people in the audience, a lot of people not. I also attended the planning commission meeting where I spoke more as a citizen than as mayor, but to promote a DIY solution to some people's stormwater issues, which is rain gardens and how they work and how they can be installed and how they efficient they are and how low cost and maybe for some of the situations that we feel as issues that are private citizen issues, maybe trying to help form some solutions for that. Also, the ComRail meeting was hosted at High Tides, which is King George, attended by the supervisors from King George, Charles County, Indian Head, Dahlgren, and Westmoreland County. And that's where we got the bridge update. The Dahlgren Navy base is now in Alpha instead of Bravo, code Alpha. So they can now go out and eat out, which is a big deal to them. Because prior, they could not do that. I also would like to thank everyone that attended the Memorial Day service at the Cannon. It was beautiful and well done, and especially to Tommy Edwards and to Tom Tilt, who was the keynote speaker there. I'd like to announce that this Saturday at 8:30 a.m. is Save the Bay Day. It is another community cleanup. It's volunteer oriented, and you meet at dockside at the marina at the end of the point, and then there is kayaks available, t-shirts, lunch, all those kinds of things for anybody who would like to help clean up. This also goes by the shoreline, but streets as well. And I did Food Lion at the last cleanup, and Food Lion needs to be done again. So please, anybody that can come out, we all use the help. Festival weekend is on, and that's exciting news. So I'll see everybody on festival weekend and all of the events happening then that were already highlighted by Karen, so I won't repeat that. And I'm available on Fridays by appointment. I do tend to book up quickly. There's a lot of concerns, but happy to do that. And so anybody who wants to meet with me on Fridays, just let me know. I also have been walking the beach with Mr. Moncure for our Beach Ambassador program. They're looking for volunteers. We stopped by the Visitor Center, which is open now and has brochures. More parking information will be at the Visitor Center. We're going to get them more brochures so that some questions can be fielded there. And then I've also requested a town manager update on several of the priority checklist items. And so at the next meeting, we will have that on the agenda. I think that's it. All right.
Mayor Schick, regarding your do-it-yourself ideas for stormwater management, the foundation has applied for a grant that's directed specifically at that, where they would be bringing in experts to put on workshops, and they would actually get a grant to buy some of the stormwater mitigating plants and trees that would be available to citizens to plant on their private property through an application process. So the grant hasn't been awarded yet, but they are optimistic. So we can communicate maybe between the community foundation regarding that, and they may have some expertise to bring in.
Great, that'd be fantastic. I'm open to all ideas on getting the word out about some of the small and easy ways to help people with solutions on this. Okay. Next up is presentations. Is Mr. Taylor here? Bill Taylor? Did he come, Rob? He didn't come. Okay. All right. We are going to commemorate Mr. Bill Taylor for his years of service. We're commemorated with a certificate given in grateful recognition of Bill Taylor for his dedication in 5 years of service with the Town of Colonial Beach Public Works Department. I'll go by and see him on Friday. Neighborhood Watch, Chief.
Good evening, Council. Appreciate the opportunity. Tonight, I'll be redoing the Neighborhood Watch program in November of 2019, if everybody remembers, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the conclusion, anybody's has any questions, forward them to me, or I know we've been coordinating this with Councilman Moncure. We also know there's been some renewed interest. So we'll proceed into it. Just a history, quick history of the Neighborhood Watch program. Neighborhood Watch actually began in 1972 with funding by the National Sheriff's Association and the U.S. DOJ, Department of Justice. Neighborhood Watch is one of the oldest and the best known crime prevention concepts in North America. Neighborhood Watch unites law enforcement agencies, private organizations, private citizens in an effort to reduce crime and improve communities. Next. What is a Neighborhood Watch? Neighborhood Watch consists of a group of people living in the same area who share a desire to work in conjunction with local law enforcement to make their neighborhood safer by reducing crime and improving the quality of life. Neighborhood Watch members have regular meetings and have specific goals. Neighborhood Watch is homeland security at the most local level. And Neighborhood Watch teaches citizens how to help themselves and their community by identifying and reporting suspicious activity in their neighborhoods. Next. There we go. And this is very important. Neighborhood Watch members do not underline in big letters take action themselves when they observe suspicious activity in their neighborhoods. These are not vigilante groups. These are just private citizens. Neighborhood Watch members only serve as the eyes and ears of the community and report the suspicious activity to local law enforcement. And also Neighborhood Watch provides an opportunity for citizens to volunteer and empowers them to become active in fighting crime in their neighborhoods, in the town. How to start a Neighborhood Watch group. First item is recruit and organize as many community residents as possible. Next is partner with local law enforcement and schedule a meeting, schedule a sit down. Last November when we did this, I know Steve Kennedy, Don Bradley kind of spearheaded it. We had several meetings at the PD with myself and other people in the command staff, and I'm sure something similar to that will happen here in the future. Discuss community concerns and develop an action plan. Next, select a motivated and organized leadership group. Establish communications plan. This can involve meetings, social media, newsletters, emails, or any other method of communication. Last, take action, develop meaningful projects, organize meetings and events, and Neighborhood Watch Toolkit is available, has training tools and ideas for meetings. And there's a great website, Neighborhood Watch website, which is like the official website. It's got a lot of good stuff on there. What are the benefits of starting a program? Establishes partnerships with law enforcement and members of the community, assists in reducing crime, provides a more safe, secure, and better prepared hometown, creates a more united community, and improves communication between community members and law enforcement. That's it. Anybody have any questions or?
Mr. Mejia? No? Okay, I think we'll be following up more on this in the next coming meetings. Is that correct? Okay, all right. I'm looking at Mr. Mejia because he's the liaison to public safety, so he's Bruce's.
July meeting.
July meeting. Okay. All right, so contact Mr. McHugh or Mr. Muncher as we move forward. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Fantastic. Is Norm present yet?
He won't be here till 7. so
Okay.
We can get to the next item and come back to him.
All right, then we will move forward with citizen input and then come back to the Westmoreland County budget overview once he's arrived. All right, citizen input, several people signed up. I do limit it to 3 minutes. That's not actually my limitation, that's by state code. Walter, you're up first.
It's time for a history lesson. I have to go back to 1960. There were 3 big projects. The elementary school was being built, the firehouse was being built, and the Baptist church was being built. All obviously did set up a plant at the firehouse parking lot to handle all 3 buildings at the same time. They set up a portable plant. They are still in business at this moment. And that concludes my history lesson for tonight.
Thank you very much, Walter. Ms. Montalvo? Doctor, I'm sorry, it didn't say that on here, so I wasn't reminded.
So what brings me here today is that I was checking the figures on the numbers and making some projections. I noticed that the budget for fiscal year 2022 in certain areas was increased, yet the revenue numbers remain the same. This can only mean one thing. There will be a tax increase. The tax increase doesn't come from the cigarettes. Even though the numbers on the tax base is the same.
Sorry, we're getting a lot of feedback right now.
Even though the numbers on the tax base is the same, the percentages that were allocated, the numbers sort of doesn't add up. So my point is this. This is a town where the majority of the citizens are hardworking Americans that earn a modest salary. We should not be increasing taxes anymore. If there is enough already that they have to be paying, there is not enough work in this area, and that's my point. So please, to this council, consider not. Yeah. Can I take a little more of this episode?
Sorry. I thought, Bruce, it was your radio that was interfering before.
No, I keep it on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I keep it on.
When you were up there, I just thought it must have been the radio.
Yeah.
Okay, is it working?
I don't know. Is it working?
Yes.
Yes. So my point to the council, I'm going to be very brief. Number doesn't add up. Revenue is too high. There will need to be a tax increase somewhere. My recommendation to all of you is, please, look at the number. This is a poor town. Don't penalize our citizens. Please, stop the big spending.
It's you.
Wants to do it here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the technical difficulties are because of not here.
Okay. I apologize for that.
It's okay. We're all friends here. So anyway, please take a look at the budget. Don't hire more people. For example, we're all talking about hiring a person to do grants. Why? I look at the grant history of this town. They only received like 2 or 3 grants in the past years, and you're going to tell me, well, that's the purpose of getting a person to write grants. But I'm going to review back. Please show me that we can get the grants, because that's a very competitive process. Please show me that we can get the grant to justify the salary. That's what I believe needs to happen. A revision of the budget, be realistic. Let's adjust our plans, and let's think of all our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dennis Ryan?
Hi, council members, Madam Mayor, Madam Town Manager. I'm Dennis Ryan. I'm a full-time resident and I represent the downtown Colonial Beach Board of Directors. Downtown Colonial Beach supports the perspective of Town Manager Adam Jacobs, but the town needs to clarify what economic development encompasses, determine goals, and plan on how to achieve them prior to hiring an economic development director. Town manager concurred with our recommendation that the best means of accomplishing this would be to convene a working group whose core membership would come from the Chamber's Economic Development Initiative, of which downtown Colonial Beach is a member. Other representatives of key constituencies whose concerns and needs are affected by economic development policy should also be included. She also supported our call to form a permanent public economic development council or commission as an outgrowth of this effort. We call on the town council to support these recommendations made by downtown Colonial Beach and supported by the town manager. The issue of economic development, which has so much to do with generation of town revenue and the livelihood of its citizens, must become coherent and detailed, as well as transparent to citizens and open to their concerns. We believe a collaborative work group that includes key stakeholders is the best way to begin. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for the audio issues that we've had tonight. Mr. Green?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and everybody. It's nice to be back here and not have to have a mask on. I gotta tell you that. The one thing that I'm gonna say is with the neighborhood watch chief, I think the neighborhood watch is a great idea. I'd also say that surveillance cameras are probably a pretty good idea. I've brought it up on numerous occasions and we haven't had anything done about it. 5 to 7 surveillance cameras around this town would probably solve some crimes pretty easily that haven't been solved at this point. Now, the real reason that I'm here is because I cannot understand why we as a town on the 4th of July or on the 3rd of July, Saturday night, are not having fireworks on Independence Day. Star Spangled Banner and all that kind of stuff. Let's think about it for a minute. We can have it to honor a mermaid and a bunch of vendors for a river fest, but we can't do it for the nation's birthday. Okay, so that's there. I'd also like to ask what's the status as far as the contract goes with the Dotson Group. We don't hear anything. It's sort of like crickets whenever anybody asks anything. I'm not asking for proprietary data. It's just if they put any money into it. We expected shovels to be in the ground somewhere around March, and here we're already in June. I also would like to know when we should expect to be able to be presented information on this drainage issue in this town. I know that the study's going on. I'd just like to know when we're going to have that. I also asked the police department if it's possible, like other police departments around the area, to get a summary on a monthly basis of what has happened, what's been solved as far as crimes go, what hasn't been solved, and that would also allow the citizenship. That would also allow the citizenship to be able to step forward, come to see the police, and maybe give them some information, because we don't know what's going on. We don't have a clue. Okay. Dr. Turner, I got one for you. I contacted the school board. I had some questions as far as what our curriculum consists of and stuff like that. Nobody's gotten back to me. Just want to make you aware of that. The other thing is there's a lot of speeding and stuff that's taking place in this town, usually between 5 o'clock in the afternoon and 10 o'clock at night. I know it's up on the north side. There's just one guy with a yellow motorcycle that's going 70 miles an hour down 12th Street, and that is unsat, and that happens all the time. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to bring up, I love the tree idea as far as alongside the sidewalks and stuff like that. Don't put them too close to the sidewalks to where it tears up the sidewalks with the roots. With that, I'll let it go. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Sheehan?
I'd like to thank the mayor. I'm sorry, I waited until I have everybody's attention. I'd like to thank the mayor and Ms. Sullivan for keeping their word about talking about the neighborhood watch tonight. Chief, I'll give you a minute. I just want to have your attention too. We're already doing a neighborhood watch. We're still waiting for input from the chief. I haven't spoken to him in a month. I'm still waiting to talk to the town manager for over a month. We already have business support. You'll see yellow signs in windows of these businesses around here. Neighborhood watch has already been started. We're waiting for the town to catch up. That's a sad situation. I've sent photos to Ms. Sullivan, I believe, of officers sleeping in the parking lot, of a homeless person sleeping in BB&T's vestibule with an officer sitting next to him in a parking lot asleep himself. That's sad. You have over $1 million budget, chief. You need to work on your police department. We need patrols in the area. We need a lot of patrols in the area. Thank you again. Thank you for doing what you said you did.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Ms. Mapp? Oh, no? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I didn't sign up because I didn't realize some of the comments that were going to be made, but I just wanted to maybe make a couple comments to clarify to the speakers. First of all, Lisette, I strongly disagree with you in regards to the grant writer. If you have been attending the meetings that I have been attending for economic development over the past few months, you would realize this is the year of any year where there is so much federal and state money available for towns that have their act together and someone that can focus 100% on going after and making sure that we get our fair share of it. You would not believe what is sitting out there. One of the meetings that I attended, the VITA meeting, there's a whole report on that, which I'm happy to share with you. The Secretary of Finance for the Commonwealth of Virginia said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for towns, and they were referring to towns like Colonial Beach, to take advantage of this money to get their infrastructure replaced and to get their towns revitalized. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And we would be foolish not to have a grant writer and an economic development director going after that. And to address the other gentleman's concerns, maybe he doesn't know, but I'm actually heading up our Economic Development Committee. I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce here in Colonial Beach, and I was asked to form an Economic Development Committee. I think it's the precursor to a lot of the comments that you were making there. I am working with the town manager. I'm working with the mayor. We have a very strong, high-powered team of business leaders here in this town, and I think we do have a strong roadmap. We have a charter, and we have presented that at a council meeting here. And again, I'm more than happy to share that and make it available to anybody that would like to. But I think we're well on the path, and I think it's critical that this town stay focused on economic development in partnership with what's happening with the Dodson Group. And there's good things happening there. And I think that this 2021 is the year where we are going to get money that is going to revitalize this town and really make a huge difference. And we should make sure we're keeping our eye on that ball and moving it forward. Thank you.
discussion afterwards, you can, but that's it. Thank you. Each citizen is awarded 3 minutes. We're gonna stick to that. Afterwards, you guys can talk however you like. All right, anybody else for public comment? Excellent. We'll move forward. I skipped over Mr. Razavi. I saw he showed up while we were there. So if you're ready, Norm, then we'll go back to the Westmoreland County budget overview. Thank you for coming here to Colonial Beach.
Couldn't turn down the new town manager. She's pretty persuasive.
That's good.
The first slide I want to go to is an in-house query that we use and have used for years in the county. The median household or home ownership in Westmoreland County has increased to 190,000. So basically, how we break this down is the model, and this first one you're looking at is I've pulled out and done the same thing that you'll see on the next slide that is county-wide for the town of Colonial Beach. This shows you that the 4 lower level value range categories, you basically have 1,695 homes in Colonial Beach that basically make up 54% of the value. And that's 70% of the parcels. Your values from the top 3, the $150,001 and up, basically make up 45% of the value, and there are 704 homes, and they're 29% of the parcel. And why we utilize this in our budget presentation, generally the rule of thumb is that you want those upper 3 categories basically to be over 50%. So if it's under 50%, those are usually issues that you try to address. And so I'm going to go to the next slide, which shows the figures countywide, and you could look at it at a later point in time. But you see in the county, the highest 3 values make up 56% of the values, and they're only 30% of the parcels, and that's 2,759 homes, where those at the lower 4 categories are basically 43% of the value and 69% of the parcels. Now, as I move through the progression of the presentation, there's a little bit more of an explanation that goes in there. During the downturn that we all experienced about 2008, 2009, that county figure of 56% actually dropped very close to 50% because of the devaluing and the 17% decrease that everybody experienced on their residential real estate. If you go to the next slide, Westmoreland County, it makes up a significant portion of the vacation homes in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Matter of fact, there's 3 localities in the northern neck who make up a significant portion of those, one being Northumberland County, Westmoreland County, and Lancaster County. Those are significant numbers increase, and why vacation homes are so important. And I've actually done a calculation for Colonial Beach, and it's very similar to our other waterfront communities. And the vacation homes don't utilize our schools, which is the most expensive item that we have in our budgets. They generate minimal trash service, flows for our sanitary sewer system, water usage, and so forth. So those are wins to help offset the cost of educating our children within our jurisdictions. But this is a pretty significant study that the state did, and I give you the link here that if you want to actually read the report from the Cooper Center, it's pretty interesting. Okay, to show you on the next slide is basically overall summary of how the county's tax dollars are. We support the community college, which one of your members is the county representative on that board. Public Works, that covers everything from maintaining the James Monroe birthplace to dealing with the trash that the county pays to dispose of, that's brought to us by your government employees and also by the private collectors for those locations in the county that have pickup. Then we have non-departmental, which are contributions to, for example, the Guadalupe Health Clinic here is one of those, and a number of other contributions that we give to the Humane Society here and so forth. As you can see, the capital projects in this year's general fund budget is extremely low. And the reason that is, we are anticipating the American Rescue Plan. So we are going to utilize those funds since the scope of that has changed significantly than the first round of funds that the localities have received. We have community development, which covered parks, recreation, culture, general government administration, which includes our land use office, the Commissioner of Revenue, the Treasurer's office, and my office. Then you see our debt service schedules and transfers, which are primarily to the school system and the Department of Social Services. And then you see the health and welfare for those departments that we pay for mental health, the health department, and other services such as the juvenile detention facility. So when the chief sends somebody to the detention facility, they send the bill to the county to pay for it. And then the public safety, which is an ever-growing percentage of our budget. That includes the sheriff's department and the rescue services, and then the judicial administration. The court cases are rapidly growing, and we anticipate probably within the next 10 years that there will be an added judge that will require more effort on our part to provide the courtrooms and so forth for that. The next slide covers the historical expenditures of our constitutional officers in the compensation board funding. As you can see, from 2004 to 2005, the county share was basically $1.1 million, and the comp board share exceeded that. As you can see, as we've progressed through the years, that number has significantly changed with the compensation board. As the economic downturns have occurred, they have cut the local constitutional officers' budgets, and they have not restored any of that money. So we have had the privilege of absorbing that cost, and to this day, when I spoke with Mrs. DeSocio, who is the executive director, on another matter, I asked her if that money was ever going to be restored, and she told me it's been never brought up in a legislative committee hearing. So I expect that we will not receive that money. And I believe you have a former county clerk here from Stafford, do you not? So he would have experienced some of this fun that we have to endure with our constitutional officers. So those are funds where you have state representatives saying, we're not raising your taxes. No, they're not raising them because they're pushing it down to us to let us raise the taxes and take credit for it. But that's not something that's unusual to Westmoreland County. Stafford has experienced it and all the other jurisdictions as well. The next item that is a major expenditure in our budget is the Comprehensive Services Act. And basically what that is as children who cannot function in a traditional educational setting. So then we have to look at alternatives to educate those children. And it is not optional on our part, it is mandatory. Because the Board of Supervisors had me make an inquiry one time to the judge, what would happen if we didn't appropriate the money? So I went back and told them the news they'd all be spending the night in the regional jail until they decided in the affirmative. But as you can see, back in 2018 and 19, we spent $2.1 million, and that was on roughly 40 children. 40 children. That is almost as much as the debt service on our new high school. So, and you don't know from year to year. When you budget it, it drops down, then it goes back up. Because we have a rule at the county, we don't like to talk about it, because when you talk about it, something goes amiss. And we have more children. We have a lot of children who come from Maryland and other localities to receive benefits. And it gets to be very expensive to all our taxpayers, which the residents of Colonial Beach are also taxpayers of the county, so they get to share in this exercise. There are basically, the breakdown is there are 7 children in separate day school from the Colonial Beach school system. And there are 14 children separately in day school from Westmoreland for a total of 21. Some of those schools are very expensive. The day schools are less so than where we have to actually send the child to live on a campus. Some of those are well over $100,000 in cost to the locality. So basically, the percentage of Colonial Beach students is 33% of these separate day schools. And I know that your superintendent works closely with our FAP committee and the actual CPMT. The next slide that you'll see is just a memo that I had Belinda Johnson, who is our CSA coordinator, prepare, that basically shows the breakdown and a little bit more description of those children from Colonial Beach. And basically, we have a total of 42 children in the program right now. So it appears she came and spoke to me the other day. The Board of Supervisors imposed a 5% holdback because of the uncertainty of the budget situation. And she came and requested that because she did not have adequate funds to contractually commit some of these children. So it may very well be Mr. Trivett and the other 4 board members will be hearing at the board meeting for a supplemental appropriation to make it through the rest of the year. Okay, the next slide that I provided here for your information is one of the largest expenses that the county has to pay. It's the revenue recovery for our paid EMS. As you all know, and I believe Mr. Trivett has informed you all, we are adding, well, we've already added the 4th unit to serve, and we're in the process of doing interviews for captain's positions, and they will be paramedics, and they will be eligible to respond to a call for the 5th call if we don't have a unit available. During the day, we're in pretty good shape with the chief and the deputy chief, and with these captains, we'll be able to handle additional calls beyond the 4 that the 4 units have right now. And the construction out at the site at Oak Grove, I believe, is nearing completion. They're getting ready to do the paving, but every time we get ready, it rains and messes up the schedule. So that should be completed here in the very near future. But one of the things that you can look at, back in 2010 and 11, when the rescue squads first approached us and said they could not handle the calls during the daylight, we basically ran service from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. As you can see, as we progress out, that suddenly changed as we've had 2 of our rescue squads basically go out of business. And so basically we are running probably better than 90% of all the calls in the county. And one of the things that's very difficult, and I'm sure the chief experienced this, trying to get certified people, whether they're police officers or EMTs or paramedics. They are in the driver's seat when when you have this kind of demand and a limited supply, they're constantly jockeying that they get more money, whether it's in King George, Stafford, and I'm sure Stafford complains about Prince William and everybody north, and it's just a continuous wave of trying to keep up. And so we've done our very best. The board has been very supportive, and we have a lot of local folks who are EMTs and paramedics, and we're trying to advance some of them to earn the higher certification because they're more inclined to stay here and provide service over the years. But as you can see, the general fund subsidy in 2010 and 2011 jumped from 237,000 to 1.6 million in the current or the most recent budget that was ended. And we don't see that anytime soon decreasing. Matter of fact, we see those costs increasing, and some of our financial trend monitoring system shows that there's significant signs of inflation to occur here, or it's already ongoing, but it's going to get worse. The next slide is just sort of a demographic to explain why many of the issues that we face is the population by age. You can see Westmoreland County on the left bar chart compared to King George County, and you can see we have a very significant number of folks 50 and up, and that impacts our social services, Bay Aging, the rescue services. I serve as the chairman of our ambulance board that does the billing for the 5 counties, including Essex and some other volunteer fire departments. I can tell you the predominant folks that we haul are covered by Medicare. The 3-hour round trip to Fredericksburg, Medicare, we get an average of about $125. That barely pays for the diesel fuel that goes in there. So, you know, it's not a money-making opportunity, but the county is required to provide EMS services, and we are doing it under very difficult circumstances. The last year has been very tough, not only for law enforcement, but for EMS. And we're very proud the way our employees have handled the situation. And they dealt with some very difficult problems. Some of them contracted COVID. And so we were doubling up, filling slots, and which is not easy. But when we're a magnet for retirees, there's a positive side of that, and then there's a negative side as well. Okay, the next item is probably one of the most famous items that the town of Colonial Beach, the school formula. And so I was asked by Mr. Trivett to include this as an explanation, since I see a lot of new faces that I've never seen before. So I'm going to try to go through this and explain it. Back in my first year here in 1993, prior to my getting here, the town and the county went to binding arbitration to the Commission on Local Government. And the decision was rendered, and the county's attorney showed up and handed me a document and said, here, you've got to implement this. And so I believe Mr. Davis was the town manager at the time. So we sat down and looked at it, and so it was implemented for 5 years, but one of the problems was in the second year after the fiscal year that was closed out and audited, any adjustment up or down had to be made in then the subsequent year. And the problem was the disproportional size of the Westmoreland County school system to the town school system. It always ended up with the town owing the county money back. The first year, I believe, was $600,000. So that was not accepted enthusiastically by your predecessors here. So we had numerous meetings over 5 years, and unfortunately, the way it was written, there was no way around it. The auditors, your auditor, our auditor agreed that we were applying it correctly. And so We then approached, and I don't remember who the town manager was at the time, but we then agreed with the town council and board of supervisors to amend the legislation because it seems silly to us to be collecting money for a service that we did not provide. So basically, what we agreed to is under the new legislation that we would follow many of the same principles, but we would no longer tax the residents of Colonial Beach for schools because you are the governing body for that. And that should be your job, not our job, because basically you were just getting whatever we did for the school system, which quite frankly was never adequate to cover the cost of the school system. So in the first of all, you see the countywide assessed value estimates, the school district, which is Westmoreland School District, and then the county of Colonial Beach is assessed values. When we apply our tax rates over here in the left-hand column, you will see the various rates. Those are the countywide rates that you pay, I pay, and everybody pays for general government services. This is the only tax from the county that the residents of Colonial Beach pay. I have the privilege of paying, when you add the two columns for the school district together, those of us who live in the county get to pay both those. So if you come down then and look at the Colonial Beach application of the formula, if you were part of the county, you'd be paying roughly $1.8 million towards the county school system. So what we do is we simply don't tax you for that amount. And theoretically, what the council was supposed to do was apply that rate to your tax bill and whatever, but that would not cover generally your local share. So you usually always had to add to it. But that's how that's arrived. It used to be, we would send money to you, you'd send money back, and it was an administrative nightmare. So since this year in 2000, it has made it a lot easier. We haven't had to meet, bring our auditors in, and pay extensive sums of money that never changed anything. So basically, you decided to have your own school system, so you should decide what the level of taxation should be. The next page is part of the school formula. It shows we are required by the law to identify revenues that support the Westmoreland County school system. You'll see the levy revenues, which was taken from the previous page, the motor vehicle license, the local sales tax, and it goes on. I won't bore and read every one of those. But basically what the law says, any revenue that is shared between the Commonwealth and the town is considered a non-levy fund and can be utilized for education for the local share. For example, the motor vehicle license, you all apply that in the town of Colonial Beach. We apply it in the county. So as often as we were told that we weren't paying our fair share, we were hearing from the county residents that the town residents weren't paying for their fair share. So this process makes it very clear who's paying for what. And there can't be any argument, So you come down, this is the local share of 11 million. We subtract out the debt service payments because school systems are not allowed to make or incur debt. And so the auditors were transferring it back in the audit, and it just complicated the school's accounting function. So we said from now on, we'll just subtract it out of the formula, keep it, and we'll pay the school debt service. So the transfer balance in the current year that will be appropriated will be $9,277,468. And this is sent to the town manager or the finance office. We send it to somebody up here so that you have that information to work with when you're doing your budget. The next item, the county is currently in the process of doing a real estate assessment. And I'm sure they've paid many of you a visit at your home, as they have paid a visit to my home. And Mr. Pearson made a presentation of the first sales ratio study. I'm not sure if it was last month or within the past 2 months. And he indicated that the expectation should be at least probably a 15% increase. It may very well, the values may actually increase more than that, because I don't believe I need to tell you about all the building that's going on and all the building permits that we're issuing, and I'm going to cover that here a little bit later. The county pays for all of the reassessment services. Towns do not pay anything for that. And then the Board of Supervisors will appoint their respective members to sit on the equalization board. So if you make your appeal to the assessor and he doesn't find your argument persuasive, then you have a right to appeal it to the equalization board. If you're not happy then you can go visit our circuit judge. And so, but I can tell you historically, this is probably about the 6th or 7th reassessment that I've done in the 28 years I've been here. And I would say usually you have maybe 100 people that come in and make their pitch, but it's not really that many. The next item is a project that the county has been working on with the Northern Neck Planning District Commission and Dominion, Northern Neck Electric, and All Points Broadband to expand broadband service in George County, Westmoreland County, Northumberland County, Richmond County, and I believe I've read here recently Lancaster and Middlesex have now decided to jump on the train as it was leaving the station. So I would suggest you go out and look on the YouTube video that Dominion has put together. It's a pretty interesting proposal, and you should be receiving notification on a groundbreaking that we're doing here in June. The county has a number of capital projects that it's been working on and starting. One is obviously the new high school. We're getting close to where we're starting getting the furniture, fixtures, and equipment orders. And so that's moving along. We're about the halfway point. It should be substantially completed by February of 22. The additional capital projects is the recreation complex. It involves ball fields, 4 lighted ball fields that will be able to entertain tournament play. And one of the things that are talking with the Little League and other groups is when we have this tournament play, you need a lot of motel rooms and places for people to stay. And so usually they start on a Thursday.
I think that's the next slide.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make sure people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually it starts on a Thursday and goes through Sunday, and it generates pretty significant numbers of folks, that some who choose to stay at campgrounds, some who want to stay at motels, and quite frankly, we don't have very many motels in Montrose.
Do you have any?
Just the Washington Lee is the only motel.
Okay.
And so.
Is that the one with the pond in front of it?
Yes. And then the bed and breakfast, it used to be by the old courthouse, used to be able to handle, I think, 15 people or so, but it's closed, I believe, so I don't believe it's open. So we are waiting this month to pave the parking lot there. The lights are up. They are guaranteed for 25 years. So if they go out, we just call them, they come and replace it. These are the high intensity lights that don't glare off of the property, because we promised the neighbors there that we would do everything we could to try to minimize any disruption to their lives. And if you go to the next slide, the recreation complex will have picnic pavilions that you'll be able to schedule through the Y to utilize those. We have a mile-long walking trail that you see that's paved. It's an all-weather walking trail. This project, we received $350,000 in a VDOT grant for the recreational access road, and over $600,000 for the development of the park. So we were very successful. The state DCR representative was very pleased about what we've done and has encouraged us to apply for some additional funds in the future. We have to build a maintenance building there yet, and also a concession stand with restrooms. So there's still work to be done, but we're doing the best we can to try to get things done under the circumstances that we've been dealing with. An additional project that the county is required to do is, I believe, all local government jurisdictions, and I don't know if I mentioned this to Rob, but the public wells that are not grouted have to be replaced before your permit is renewed. And I assume yours are gravel packed wells. And so, so we have went together with the town of Montrose, because you have to have a backup well, so each of us would have had to drill 2 wells. So what we have got DEQ to agree to is each of us would serve as the backup well for the interconnection of the 2 systems. So that is going to save us a substantial sum of money. And we are applying for a grant through the State Housing and Community Development, which we hope to be able to get up to $700,000, because this is a $1.1 million replacement cost. At the other end of the county, we need to install a plant drip system. What you see there are 3 million gallon storage tanks that our wastewater treatment plant at Coles Point serves. That is not a direct discharge plant. It requires us to use spray irrigation. And I don't need to tell you what the problems have been in the last 2 of the 3 years, where we have had twice the amount of rainfall above our normal rainfall amounts. So that has created an issue with us, where we had to do a pump and haul and bring it to the town of Montrose, or well, the county's plant in Montrose, to discharge that. So with this drip system, it will not be adversely affected by weather conditions. So we will be able to discharge even when it's raining, hurricanes, or whatever those type of events are that have an adverse effect on spraying. We will still continue to use the spray fields when they're eligible, but we need another alternative, because pump and haul is pretty expensive, especially when you're dealing with the 9 million gallons of water. The next slide shows you the construction figures for the county. This is countywide, and it does include Colonial Beach, other than the pre-Colonial Beach in 2018, before we were asked to do your building inspections. So as you can see, the new single-family dwellings have increased. We've had some commercial buildings, and my staff and I are currently working with several economic development prospects who want to locate at the upper end of the county. And so we are working diligently with them to try to find them suitable property that they would be able to move their business here and assist us in our economy. The next page shows you the total number of all permits. This is additions and so forth. And as you can see, those numbers have increased quite significantly, and they're continuing to increase. The total sewer connections, this is countywide that we deal with. So we've had 160 new connections for service, and the tap fee payments of $1.2 million. And they're still coming in the door, so I could stop and update the thing today. But the construction and permits that we're issuing, I can tell you, and I've reported this to the Board of Supervisors, that the land use budget is $200,000 above my estimate. And as a matter of fact, I met with the planning director today. It may very well exceed 100% of the revenues that I estimated. And so, and then when you look at the transfer tax from the county clerk's office, that has exceeded the budget estimate by $150,000. So those are positives, but there are some negative things that the state has done to us. So we are starting this month, we need to collect $1.1 million more to equal 100% of our budget. And I am uncertain at this time whether or not that will occur. So although there is some good news, in the 40 years of doing budgets, I have never quite seen budgets and transactions occur 1 month, it's way up, the next month, something is way down. And I think it's clear from the solid waste figures that we have, the sewer flows, and just by visually, riding a bike or walking around our various subdivisions, many of these folks were telecommuting from their second home. Because the tonnages, our tonnage, we've had a couple of tonnage days in the last couple of months that exceed 186 tons coming through our transfer station. I hate to say this where it gets out, but we're applying to the DEQ to up the number because we're only supposed to be accepting 125. So we've met with the contractor to determine what the correct amount would be. We thought 200, but now we've determined it's best to apply for the permit for 300 tons a day. Because it's just unbelievable the amount of waste that's being generated and coming to the county.
Would that kind of data help in estimating how many tourists or seasonal residents are coming into town? We're having to collect some data.
I tried that with the compensation board one year on our municipal solid waste. They said it was a nice try, but they weren't going to give us any more money.
Yeah, it's very difficult to actually quantify.
Well, it's
how many
not,
of those-
actually, you can take the national figures, which is for solid waste, and that tells you basically the tonnages that I've been talking about, tells us generally the population is around 32,000. So, but, that's not persuasive enough for them to pony up any more money.
So based on your trash, we can tell you how many people have been in town.
Yes. The trash and the other waste that comes through our transfer, or our
Yeah, but for economic development reasons, it may be enough to get some figures to have some idea of how many.
we can also take the sales tax, and
Yeah.
I have a program that I correlate how many more people
Okay,
than above the average. So there's different ways that we have, and we're going to start scheduling a monthly meeting with the two town managers as I have done previously in previous years, and we're going to discuss a number of different things.
excellent.
Okay, does anybody have any questions they would like to ask?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Wasabi, for coming. This is very helpful to us and to our citizens. I really appreciate it. The one place where I would like to maybe encourage citizens to follow up, the Constitutional Officers Compensation Board funding. Which committee would they need to send their letters and calls to in order to get them to take this up in committee?
They would need to talk to Delegate Ranson and Senator Stewart, I believe is your senator, correct?
Right, but to get it out of committee, apparently it hasn't even come up in committee. Are they on the committees?
I don't believe either one of them, or they're not exactly in the right party as of this hour. So but they would have influence to talk to their colleagues who are on there, and they can certainly introduce legislation and appear before those committees.
Okay,
But basically, it's not really the compensation board, because I've had extensive conversations with Robin DeSocio. For the last 20 years, I've done presentations to their newly elected officials, so I'm familiar with most of the folks who work there. And, they're just given an amount of money and they have to do the best they can with it. And so they're in a tough situation.
so it has to come from the legislative body, and that's the people we need our citizens to talk to.
Yes.
Thank
And see, one thing too, a lot of those numbers you see, those are employees that are 100% paid for by the county. In the clerk's office, the sheriff's department, we employ a significant number of people there beyond what if we only did what the compensation board did and paid the salaries that they approved, it'd be a very lonely place for Sheriff Walderson and most of us, because nobody would work for those salaries. And I believe The comp board folks have told us that we've done an admirable job for a small rural county to be able to keep these people because, once they get experience, and I don't need to tell the chief, all they have to do is look north and they can go get a very sizable increase, whether they're EMS, planners, or whatever they are.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you very much. I really appreciate that overview.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the Virginia Recreational Trails Program. This is the, application to, and I'm sorry, I forgot the acronym. Is it DCR?
Yes.
Okay, for, linear park, improvements along the bike path. And so, we'd like to open it up for public comment for that. Dr. Montalva?
Two things before I start with the linear pass. The first one, I could not understand what he was saying about the $394,000 that they were paying for assessment. Does that mean that the 15% in assessment that they anticipate is an increase in our taxes, or is just?
You might want to catch him because this public comment goes on record for the grant.
Okay,
Okay.
so, but that was important. Anyway, I will catch with him. I do believe that this is a grant and it closes in June the 30th. And I do believe that we should apply, but I do not believe that we should have hire a person in the county or in the town to write that grant. I do believe that there are enough people to write for that grant. And if that is what you're intending to apply for the grant, no?
No, the grant's written by a volunteer from Naked Neck Adventures and in coordination with Bobby Duke. They already are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I am all for it as long as we are not paying anybody to write that grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment for the linear park? Okay, I will close public comment then. Mr. Duke, would you like to follow up? I should have had you intro it. I apologize.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to reiterate that we do have a gentleman by the name of Mr. Greg Hewitt with Naked Neck Adventures. Is a relatively new business in the lower end of the county. He's writing the grant for us. He's written several successful grants for the DCR or on behalf of local small governments before. Just a couple of quick things. We're ready. We're pretty much on path to hit the June 30 deadline for the application itself. Other than the minutes of tonight's meeting regarding the public hearing, we are including a letter of support from Congressman Whitman. And again, Mr. Hewitt has been in contact with the folks at DCR pretty much on a weekly basis as to what we're doing correctly and incorrectly to submit all that information. Quickly, if I may, Madam Mayor, when I came on board, we had heard conversations about a park on the north side of town. And we got lucky, and we've both said this several times, we got lucky that this grant was available because it does provide, funding for a park, and the golf cart trails are literally impossible to find instead of grant funding for things like that. So this grant would kill a lot of birds with one stone in the sense that it would have upgrades to the golf cart path itself along the town easement to include some lighting and drainage issues that might be up there. Add further open and green space to the town, an additional recreational facility for not only the residents of the north side, but for all the citizens. And again, the need for a public park or recreation facility in the north side of town has been spoken about for a long time. So I would hope that any public comment would be positive towards it. And at that point, we just kind of cross our fingers and hope that we actually are awarded the grant. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to start on this side. Mr. Moncur? I thought you raised your hand. No? Okay. Dr. Sopsell?
One of the things that I've heard from citizens is that that golf cart path is currently used by big trucks who can maneuver and don't have to worry about getting stuck. In fact, I had one report a couple of months ago where a truck came barreling through, hit a deer and didn't even stop, and it was witnessed by a young man. So I really liked the idea in your presentation of having some sort of bollards that would maybe limit, golf carts could pass through, but normal vehicles and trucks particularly can't pass through. And I thought that would be a really selling point to our citizens too, for making that a safe, much safer place to drive, walk, drive the golf carts, bike and walk.
Yeah, if there was lighting on it, I would go down it at night, but I actually avoid the section from 7th to 12th at night and only use the section from the Meadows to 12th because you have to on my golf cart. Some down lighting, not up lighting, not lighting that's distracting and annoying to the neighbors, but some path lighting would be appropriate. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about the grant, and I would like to take a roll call vote if you to express if you are indeed supportive of this or not, since this will go down in the minutes for the grant application. So if you're indeed supportive of the grant application for the Virginia Recreational Trails Program, Mr. Duggan?
Yes.
Mr. Moncur? Yes. Ms. Robertson?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Yes.
And I also.
Thank
Full
you.
consent. All right. Next up is an update on the economic development incentives, amendments to chapter 23 and 24 of town code. Ms. Adams Jacobs, do you want to start on this? Do you want me to start on this? Or would you like me to give some background on it? Okay. Just to refresh people's memory, this started back in January in our prioritization meeting. We wanted to approach economic development from multiple avenues, and one of those ways is providing incentives through the town code. Our town code here in Colonial Beach already had incentives in it. However, they were outdated and defunct. The Virginia state legislation had repealed sections that were no longer then relevant in our town code. And so while currently the code states that we have a couple of incentive districts, one of them is not even lawful and the other one is expired. And so in order to rejuvenate that, also align it with the state code, then we brought up revising this code piece to do that. Along that line, the formation of the Economic Development Committee that Mr. Fitzpatrick, who he had to leave earlier today, or earlier in the meeting, he took that code on in a big way and took it back to the Chamber of Commerce along with the Economic Development Committee and those stakeholders that he's talked about several times. They went through it. They made many suggestions. Also some research as to other localities that had these economic incentives in it, and then pulled that together. After sifting through that, then he met with me at the time before we had our new town manager, and we tried to incorporate as many of the suggestions that came out of that Economic Development Committee to the code. Along with the help of Vivian, our attorney, who also told us what now is and is not acceptable. So in that, we are still in the revision phase. We are collaborating with town staff and had a town staff meeting last week at the request of Ms. Jacobs, which we will continue, I think, to be working on, and incorporating some staff commentary as well as cleaning it up. So kind of does a little bit of a beginning to where we're at now. The last revisions that we went through, I know you guys yawn when I bring this up, but it's fine. This is one of the times in which I think that council can use the town code to set a tone for how we want to be perceived and attract business. And so by updating this is an initiative that tells all new coming business and existing business that we're supportive of your growth. And so that's really the point of it, right? And then to actually be supportive of their growth and not just say it as a welcome line, as a tagline, but provide incentives to that. Okay, so we've been working through many things so far, and I just wanted to point out where we're at right now. From the last draft, we had 3 different zones. There was a technology zone, a tourism zone, which are now both specific language in state code, and then an economic revitalization zone. When we talked through this last time, I felt like I was getting deer in headlights about the economic revitalization zone. So right now, that part is removed because it was not specific enough and filtered through enough. And so if we would like to develop an economic revitalization zone, I'd be supportive of that, but I feel that it needed more work. We can always add that back in, but it just isn't ready to move forward at this time. It was still really vague, and I think we need to get more specific and maybe have more research. Maybe that can be led by the new town manager, if that's the path we want to go forward in. Otherwise, in the qualified technology business zone and the qualified tourism business zone, the edits from before have been incorporated. In the staff meeting, there was talk about how we want from the Economic Development Committee, they asked that these incentives apply to new or expanding businesses. But the code really only talked about expanding existing businesses. It didn't really target new business. And so now there's a line that quantifies what a new business means, what the incentive applies to in the new business. Also so you'll see that highlighted. The maps are being revised, that still is being worked on. In the tourism side, the technology business side includes everything from research and development, sciences, green energy. We're also targeting health and wellness, since that is a big need in the community. In the tourism side, we're targeting more tourism related things, and there were many suggestions from the that EDC group, including from them to include B&Bs and hotels, but not include home rentals or like Airbnb things, even though we took that exact language out to not include that, to include things that are related to tourism, including marinas. I did not add that in, they added that in. The arts and culture organization was so that the arts and culture code that we have, the incentive program we have now, is defunct and the state law was repealed. So that's a way to continue support the arts, is to put that in here. And then we also want to quantify businesses and incentivize businesses in a seasonal basis, because we know it's unrealistic for a tourism-based business to meet expectations year-round. Okay, everybody's following on. You haven't glossed over yet. We also need to define what a seasonal full-time employee is, because we're asking people to hire more. We want more jobs. We want more investment. We want to incentivize that. And so if they do that, we have to quantify those things. So that's still being worked out, and as well as the application for and the process in which it will be administered. Ms. Adams-Jacobs, do you have more to add to that?
I think you covered a good portion of it, but as a follow-up from staff, we will be meeting again next Friday to revise those maps a little bit further to make sure that we have a clear delineation around the technology and the tourism zones, and really clarify where there is some overlap in both of those zones. We also had some feedback from internal staff around certain environmental issues along the waterfront further out in old technology maps. Want to make sure that we're aware of that as we got some feedback from our planning commission folks. So want to make sure that we have those things as well as some initial financial projections based on some scenarios, just looking at typical businesses without naming names, but obviously just projecting what a new business would look like, what an expanding business would look like based on some of your incentive packages thus far, and then following up later on to have a tailored incentive brochure so that when we do meet with prospective businesses that we can, like you mentioned, share some of our incentive packages and then have a specific page on our website to talk about these incentives to point people to in the future. So by our July meeting, we would hope that our next workshop to be able to have this a little bit more fleshed out and bring back those specific maps as well as a draft application. And both myself, Ms. Oakes and Ms. Easley will be working on those items.
Are there any questions at this point? Yes.
So I think, Ms. Adam Jacobs, I talked to the mayor here before too. I think this is a great way to do it. And I think this deliberate approach to having all the pieces put together, come up with vignettes of how businesses would do this. And what I think is important that before this turns into something that is adopted and voted on is that we have a process in place so that it can be audible, repeatable, more than one person knows the process within the town staff to make it happen. Because what I don't want to have happen is we say, yep, let's go vote for it. And then the next day somebody comes in and applies. And although we worked the vignette, we don't have a process that is repeatable and auditable in place. And I think that would go along with about anything we want to do is ensure that we have the process down and it's understood, not just by our staff, but by our citizens as well.
I'm making a note of that, but we will definitely have a process in place as well as application online and a specific rollout process for that. We are working with our planning department. They actually just hired someone, planning tech today, and this will be a program that they administer. So ensuring that everyone in that office is kept abreast of the program and that we also roll out and market it appropriately. So we'll do that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, resolution 1721, adoption appropriation of fiscal year 2022 budget and adoption and appropriation of fiscal year 22 budget for the Colonial Beach School Board. The public hearing was held on May 19th, 2021. There is not an increase in taxes at the tax rate right now, and we do not expect one, nor do I want one. So just to make that clear. Do I have a motion for the resolution 1721?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Dr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Duggan?
Aye.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. All right, resolution 2121, amendments and appropriations for FY 2021 budget school fund ADM adjustment requirements. Ms. Jacobs, you want to read us into this?
This item coming forward from the team is a request from the superintendent who is here today to talk a little bit about the ADM process, looking back to a fiscal year prior, fiscal year 2021. And he can come up at this point to talk a little bit about this item and why this adjustment is needed. And then I'll turn it over to Lisa for any follow-up questions.
Good afternoon. So this, can you guys hear me? Okay. So this resolution is seeking to make an adjustment to our, the local funding that was established for this fiscal year. As you know, we were funded this particular school year at $1,745,765. But our ADM and the local requirement changed throughout the school year. So as our ADM became $595, when you use a calculation sheet that's used to determine the local funding amount. The local funding amount came out to be, and I'm looking for the number because I can't do that in my head. Say it again?
1.926,
Yes, one
173.
$1,926,173. And so we are required to ensure and certify that the local funding amount that's expected from the state has been provided by the local government body. And so we're expected to make this request to meet the local funding amount. This is not an attempt to get more money than what we're supposed to have. This is just simply to ensure and certify that the local funding that's expected from the locality has been provided. And so that's what this request is for.
Lisa, you have anything you want to add?
So this resolution is going to provide the remaining required local match to the school, $180,408. Luckily, we had brought in that revenue previously because we have gotten extra revenue this year that we projected. So we were able to easily just move the money that we had already reappropriated, appropriating to the budget for that excess revenue, to move it to transfer it over to the school to pay this amount. And this is the resolution to do that.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
all right,
Aye.
and the mayor votes aye.
And so too, if I may take a moment, I just want to tell the administration, town manager, thank you. They've been most helpful in just going through the information and talking with the school division about what's the appropriate steps, what should we do, what should we not do. And so I just want to take this opportunity to tell Lisa and Ms. Jacobs, thank you so much, okay? To the council, thank you too for passing the budget, appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, we're almost there. Chesapeake Bay Regional Tax Board / local cigarette tax discussion. Ms. Adams Jacobs?
Thank you, Mayor. So bringing forward this item, as a result of the 2021 General Assembly legislative session, there were some legislation that was passed, specifically SB 1326, local cigarette taxes, that really outlines the state's want for local localities to actually enter into a regional tax board whenever appropriate. It was brought to my attention that there was such a board being established in this region, known as the Chesapeake Bay Region Cigarette Tax Board. I have worked with internal staff to talk through some of the pros and cons of joining the board and the projected costs based on the localities that have already worked on joining the board to date. Working with our internal staff, we projected that the cost to join the board would be about $4,000 annually based on our revenue to date, based on about the $82,000 that we received in revenue from FY20. Should the town choose to join a regional tax board, that would be our initial fee for joining. We could also talk today and discuss a little bit about either increasing our local cigarette tax to the 40 cents per pack, which other localities are looking to do, or keeping our local tax flat at the 30 cents that it is. And really have an open discussion today around whether or not it's the desire of the body of the council to look forward to joining that regional board and moving forward as the state is hoping that most localities do. So, and I'm available for any questions that you have.
Did Norm leave already?
You did.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Well, I don't know, I forgot my question. Oh, I know what my question was. So we're at 30 cents. The state code allows up to 40 cents. If we want to move from the 30 to 40, can we do that right now and then join the board? Or do we join the board and then we have to wait for all that to get set up before we match that?
I don't believe that joining the board really prevents us from changing any of our current taxing at the moment. So I can defer to the town attorney, but I think that if you wanted to raise the taxes and then join the board after, that's definitely within your purview. I will say that the regional board that they're looking to establish based on the state legislation, they're hoping to get that done by July 1st. So in the event that you wanted to pass the tax, I think that will require a public hearing, a couple of readings. So it may require just logistically. So we do have a cigarette tax now.
Yes, we have the cigarette tax now. Yes.
So I've learned, a little bit disappointed from Lisa, that when we collect our local sales tax, it's not reported as coming directly from Colonial Beach. It's reported in the county totals, and the county decides what percentage of that we get. Is that the same with this tax, or is it actually reported for the town sales?
No, we actually sell cigarette tax stamps ourselves. So that revenue comes straight to us. Doesn't have anything to do with the county.
If it were to go to a regional board and they sold a regional sticker, how would we know how much of our revenue then?
I think what the board's trying to do by looking at this background is this system is so antiquated. They're trying to come up with a new way to put those stamps or do something else for that tax. And I think our tax revenue would still stay the same. We would still sell whatever that new method is going to be. But just being part of this, we'd be able to get into that new model that they're using. We'll get away from those antique stamps.
I like all our antique things. That's not true, actually. Yeah.
I have a question, and maybe you can answer this. So if our going in cost is based on our current, revenues from those taxes of 4,000, what do we get for it? Just out of curiosity, what do we get for that 4,000? Is there some benefit to the staff, to the town, to anything that's tangible to the $4,000?
I don't know much about this board.
I think Ms.
just
Jacobs
read
might have
what-
answered that better.
I'd like the town attorney to weigh in on the first question, then I'll follow up on that.
I think if I may speak in broad terms, that one of the benefits, as you would see in various types of regional efforts, would be really two things: administration and enforcement, which is kind of administration too. Because small localities, that's always a big deal. If you do enough of something, you might even have to have a whole other employee just to administer a program like this, for example. And I'm not saying you do, I'm just saying it always goes into that. That goes into the equation. So I think the benefit that you would probably see would be somewhat to administration, but if I had to guess, the big benefit you would see would be in the enforcement.
And I would add to everything she just said, specifically when we talked a little bit earlier on in me arriving in the town, as the town manager, we talked a little bit about strengthening community work, regional collaboration and partnerships. So I would say that would be one. Aligning with the state's preference, working in government relations kind of in previous positions, both with the city of Petersburg and then with Virginia Tech's Office of Government Relations. I can kind of read the tea leaves on some of this legislation that they're speaking about around wanting streamlined processes and establishing task force to go away or do away with those antiquated systems. And I spoke with Adam, who currently administers our program. We have about 6 places in town that currently sell cigarettes, but he mentioned around how he's actually worked with other localities that help establish, most recently, King George. So I followed up with King George, and they actually hired a part-time person in their Commissioner of Revenue's office who was doing this. This is their whole entire job. Granted, King George has about $4 million worth of revenue because they have specific cigarette places that sell cartons for people who come over from Maryland. So they have also allocated about somewhere between $50,000 to $75,000 between really setting up an internal urban working operations for the program, working with their deputy, with the sheriff's office to actually administer it, from kind of the enforcement piece, like the town attorney mentioned, as well as having the part-time staff and the Commissioner of Revenues. We have one person, and what I kind of fear from the state perspective, if this task force comes back and says, you now need a complete total program and we're going away from stamps, and you need to either pay for some huge administrative overhaul to do this, whether it's technology-based or huge administrative lift, that we would be behind the curve in terms of not being at the table early on. So I think that's the benefits. Obviously, the cost would be the 5% of whatever our revenues would be, which today would be about $4,000. So versus hiring a full-time or part-time staff person in the future, I think that that's a minimal cost to ensure enforcement down the road.
No, I think it's perfect. And that's, I mean, what I want to do is kind of, for lack of a better term, tease it out so that we all have an understanding of that. It's not just a monetary thing. I thought through that whole thing is, again, when you're down to one person that's doing that job, and 4,000 is not a whole lot to pay to be part of something that's, one, helps you build the bridges with the higher ups here. But I mean, I have no problem with it. I think I appreciate the answer.
Thank you.
Yes. Sure.
Um,
Mr. Cornwell, our other attorney. Yeah.
I'm county attorney for Lancaster County, and I actually drafted the ordinance that's being used, I think, for this activity.
Oh, how timely.
Probably the regional board will not get up and running until August the 1st, because some of the localities are not scheduling the public hearings until July because of different issues that you have. The basis of it is, as we said, and the town manager said, is a regional effort because most of the localities don't have cigarette tax at this point in time. But the state has indicated that if there is a cigarette tax, they want it to be done on a regional basis. We are striving to make the rate consistent across the jurisdictions, so that it will be easier to enforce. Also, the PDC is going to be enforcing the cigarette tax. It's going to be creating the stamps. It's going to be monitoring the situation. It's going to be selling the stamps. It's going to be doing everything that your internal people do now. And they will be reporting to the localities, on a monthly or regular basis as far as revenue. It's a two-step process. There is an ordinance required to be adopted in your case, to increase the cigarette tax if you wish to do so, but at least to do the regional entity, and then a regional agreement that needs to be adopted. And so Lancaster has scheduled 2 public hearings in June on those issues. And I think, as I say, some of the other jurisdictions are doing it in June, some are doing it in July. I stole the ordinance from San Anderson, so I'll give them credit for it. But so if that helps any of that in the answer, you have to answer questions.
Well, if we already have this in place and we already enforce it, and we already do the stamps, I guess why would we,
We don't have the people to enforce these.
Right.
That would take us walking into a convenience store and telling me, let me see your cigarettes to make sure they put the stamps on them. We can sell them to them, but we don't have any way to make sure that they're putting them on them and collecting the tax. And they pay us, so they should be, but.
Right. I mean, I on occasion ask to see the sticker. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a cost benefit.
But I might now.
It's a cost benefit ratio. It's a cost benefit ratio. You will pay 5% to the regional body to collect it, but you won't have to worry about enforcement or collection internally.
And will our vendors that sell cigarettes have to go to Warsaw to buy the stamps now?
I don't know if that's been resolved yet. I don't know the answer to that. That's a practicality that the PDC is going to have to work through as how the stamps are actually sent out. I think the wholesalers get the stamps, and the wholesalers provide the cigarettes to the retailers, and they're already stamped.
Okay.
So the wholesalers will get the stamps from wherever they get the stamps from. They get it from right now, I guess, from the town, and then they pass it to the retailers who sell the cigarettes. So I think you actually collect the money from the wholesalers. Correct.
Okay. Yes.
I'm going to show my age and how long ago it was that I was smoking, but do restaurants and bars still have cigarette machines, and how would this impact them?
I don't think so because of the issues of age. Not being able to buy cigarettes under a particular age.
So they no longer
I
exist.
don't believe so. And if they did exist back in these other days, previous days, they had stamps on the machines too, because wholesalers stocked the machines.
Right, yes.
So anyway, if council is interested in doing this, can explore it further. You would, if it wants to join the group, it would need to do that, adopt the two ordinances in July.
Okay, so we need to have a consensus about whether or not we'd like to join this. I think the staff recommendation is to join it.
Yes.
And originally, you know, when it had been brought up by the county and the PDC said, well, Colonial Beach already does it, King George isn't gonna do it, but I also didn't realize that King George brings in $4 million in cigarettes.
That's what they're saying.
You just have to hang out with Chief and Dell. One,
I don't,
one.
if I can't get there on my golf cart, I do not go there. I know.
Maybe your economic development committee should recruit a wholesale, a bargain cigarette store in town.
No. No, we don't need that. Sorry. There's- Mike thinks we should have a kayak company instead. Maybe a running shop. Okay. I do think it seems to me though that the consensus of from when I've sat at the Board of Supervisors meeting at the Westmoreland County, that they would be advocating for the tax to be at the 40 cents. Jim, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, they're trying to make it consistent across all jurisdictions.
Okay.
For fairness, number one, number two, ease of collection.
When you say consistent though, at the maximum rate?
40 cents.
Yes, okay. So, you know, my main thing was we shouldn't be lower than them. We've been higher than them for, I don't know how many years we've had the cigarette tax, over a decade, I think. And so there's really, you know, we don't want to lose that revenue. So we should go up to the 40 cents. We should join if we want to join the board, then join the board. But definitely be aligned with them regardless of whether we join the board or not.
Is that two separate public hearings?
One is for the agreement, one is for the ordinance.
Right.
Okay, but they can be run together in July.
Yes, ma'am. And in your case, because you'll have an increase in tax that you will have to consider also, as whether you need to do anything different.
For the cigarette tax? Yes. Okay. All right, so, is there any more discussion on whether or not we should join the board? Is there a consensus to join the board? Can I ask for consensus on that? Yeah.
Aye.
Yes?
Aye.
Yes? Yes. Okay. Huh? Oh. All right, there's consensus to join the board. So there you go, you have some direction, town manager, on that.
Do you want to ask for consensus to raise the tax
Yes.
so that we can get a resolution and a public hearing going?
Should we go ahead,
Yes.
Jim, and raise the tax regardless now? Is that something we should be pursuing, or do we have to wait for the board to assemble itself and all
No,
that?
you should do it all in a cohesive package. The agreement, to join the ordinance.
And the rate.
And the rate.
Okay, so is there a consensus to also then do a public hearing for the rate?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes, consensus over here?
Yes.
Do you have anything else you'd like to have? Okay, all right. All right, so yes to both. People shouldn't smoke, I can say that.
Thank you, we'll bring those items back.
Okay. All right, and, there is, a need to go into closed meeting tonight pursuant to You don't have the code section?
Nobody told me.
Oh, that's why he's invited.
When I
Figured
saw
that.
him, I said,
Yeah.
must be a closed session.
It would be 2.23711A7 to discuss litigation and 2.23711A8 general consultation with legal counsel, both of which would be pending litigation in Westmoreland County.
So moved.
Very much.
And business camp.
And, oh, okay, so both litigations. Okay, do we want separate motions or all one? Okay, all one motion?
So moved.
Yes,
Second.
okay. Mr. Duggan, Mr. Ron Ms. Robertson, yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
And Rose, aye. All right, we will go into closed session. Can we get a 5-minute break for everybody to go to the bathroom, please? And then we will all.
No. It's necessary, and then somebody has to let me know.
Yeah, I know, I'm like,
So tomorrow, like, we can trade. I didn't really think about It's okay, just think we have that one mind always gives everyone. You think somebody will find
He
out.
didn't, so Eric called him and made a motion. And then I can't believe he did that to him.